So now we are going to learn about two major divisions of our nervous system. This is the time from where the actual chapter begins. So there are two parts of the nervous system. One is called the central nervous system and the other is called the peripheral nervous system, CNS and PNS. Central nervous system includes the brain lying in the skull and the spinal cord contained within the vertebral column. So central nervous system consists of two things. One is the brain, which is located inside the skull, and the other is the spinal cord, which is present inside the vertebral column or our backbone. Okay, and peripheral nervous system includes the nerves which are coming in and entering. Nervous system is not just associated with our brain and spinal cord only, it is scattered throughout our body, everywhere. So those nerves which are scattered throughout our body, those are parts of the peripheral nervous system. So this ganglia which we just learned, that is also a part of the peripheral nervous system. But the main part of the nervous system which is associated with every other activity is the brain and the spinal cord. So now this peripheral nervous system is also divided into two parts. One is the somatic nervous system and one is the autonomic nervous system. So as the name suggests, somatic is something which we can control. So whenever we are able to control some muscular activity, the neurons or the nervous system associated with it is known as somatic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system is the neurons or the nervous or the part of the nervous system which is associated with involuntary activities and things which we cannot control, and ganglia is also a part of it itself. So peripheral nervous system also has two parts, somatic and autonomic. So now we are going to learn about the brain, which you can say is the mastermind of all the activities in our body. The brain is a very delicate organ well protected inside the brain box. The brain box is known as the skull or the cranium. Very important, underline it. So there are certain coverings in our brain. These are known as meninges, and sometimes what happens, these meninges get inflamed. So there is a disease, or you can say a disorder called meningitis. It has been written. Meningitis is the inflammation of the meninges. So there are three such coverings. Let us see: dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. Dura mater is the outermost tough fibrous membrane. It is the outermost membrane or the outermost covering of the brain, and it is quite tough. Arachnoid, the thin delicate middle layer, giving it a web-like cushion. The word arachnoid is associated with spider web. So the arachnoid layer is actually like a web, okay, and it is not that strong, it is quite delicate. And pia mater is the innermost highly vascular membrane, richly supplied with blood. It has a lot of blood vessels entering and leaving it, so that is known as the pia mater. These names are very, very essential. The space between the covering of the covering membranes is filled with a watery fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid. So what is the role of the cerebrospinal fluid? It is associated with protection of the brain from any sort of mechanical damage. Okay, so the fluid which is present between each and every layer is known as cerebrospinal fluid. So there are mainly three parts of the brain which we are going to learn about in detail. The first one is the cerebrum, the second one is the cerebellum, and the third one is the medulla oblongata. I will urge you all to read these topics point-wise so that you don't get confused, and it helps you to learn in a much better way. So let's see. First of all, we are going to learn about the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain. It is divided into two halves called the cerebral hemispheres. There are two parts of the cerebrum. It is divided into two halves, two hemispheres. The outermost part is known as the cortex and the inner portion is known as the medulla. It is just like in case of a kidney. The outer portion of the cerebrum contains cell bodies of the neuron. It contains cell bodies, means it contains the cytons of the neurons, and it is greyish in color. Therefore, it is known as grey matter. So why it is called grey matter? Because it consists of the cell bodies of the nerve cell. The inner portion of the cerebrum, the outer portion was grey, we called it grey matter. The inner portion is called white matter because it contains the axons. The axons are present inside and the cytons are present outside. The outer portion is called grey matter. The inner portion is known as white matter. So there are folds in a brain, as maybe you have seen in movies or in cartoons. The brain is not a smooth structure, it has folds, convolutions are there. So those convolutions, the folds are known as gyri, the folds, and the grooves, the space in between, those are known as sulci. Okay, gyri and sulci. The creases, the thin line-like structures. Those are called sulci. It is believed that the higher number of convolutions in the human brain is due to the larger number of nerve cells and hence greater intelligence. It is believed, it is not a fact. More the convolutions, or you can say more the amount of such structures in the brain, such worm-like structure in the brain to be exact, more is the intelligence, because it is believed that more number of nerve cells are there, but it is actually not a fact, it is just believed. Corpus callosum is a sheet of fibers connecting the two cerebral hemispheres. So it is a fibrous tissue, you can say, which is connecting, which is like a bridge between the two cerebral hemispheres. This is another good question. It can be asked. What is its function? Its function is to transfer information from one hemisphere to another. So cerebrum consists of two parts. So this corpus callosum, it is transferring the information from one of the hemispheres to the other hemisphere. The cerebrum is the seat of intelligence, consciousness, and willpower. It controls all voluntary actions. So whatever intelligence we have, whatever we are able to whatever we are able to have in our mind, determination, courage, consciousness, all of it is actually the work of the cerebrum, and it contains all the voluntary activities. Even now that I am speaking to you guys, that is also controlled by my cerebrum. What is generally called the subconscious or the unconscious mind is also located in the cerebrum. Sometimes the place associated with dreaming, or the place associated with thinking so much, going to different places in our thoughts itself, so that subconscious mind, or maybe the voice which keeps telling us sometimes that you're not doing it correctly. There's a voice inside each one of our heads, right? So that voice, that subconscious, is also associated with the cerebrum. Many past experiences are covered by more recent impressions which dominate conscious activity. In dreams, or when hypnotized and skillfully questioned, past experiences may be recalled. Many a times it happens that we are not able to remember something, but out of the blue we suddenly remember it. So that is also done by the cerebrum itself. It is associated with all our past memories, whatever has been going at the back of our mind since years, that is associated with the cerebrum. Next is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is a much smaller area of the brain located at the base and under the large cerebrum. So below the cerebrum is the cerebellum. The main function of the cerebellum is to maintain balance in the body and to coordinate muscular activity. Like very small kids, toddlers, they are not able to control their muscular activities. They move their hands here and there. They are not able to write. They are not able to do anything properly because their cerebellum is still developing. But as we grow up, our cerebellum becomes developed and we are able to do things. We are able to use our fingers in such a way that we can draw beautiful things. We are able to type. We are able to do so many things by coordinated muscular activity. So this thing is also maintained by our cerebellum. Cerebellum is not just associated with balance of our body, but also this coordinated muscular activity. The impulse of performing a muscular act originates in the cerebrum and not in the cerebellum. The beginning of the muscular activity starts in the cerebrum, but the entire procedure is coordinated by the cerebellum. So now you can ask how balance is maintained in our body. Many times we must have seen in movies and things that an alcoholic person is not able to walk steadily, right? He moves from one part of the road to another. Because under the influence of alcohol, the cerebellum is not able to coordinate muscular activity. So the cerebellum is not working properly, and as a result the person is not able to maintain his or her balance. So this is the thing. Even while we are walking, there is a lot of muscles which are at play. We cannot just walk just like that. Muscles are working along with it. So during the process of walking or during the process of doing any simple petty task, our cerebellum plays a major role in that. Next is another part of our brain which is called medulla oblongata. It is located at the back portion of our, you can say at the beginning portion of our neck, connecting the connecting portion between our head and neck. That is the portion of the medulla oblongata. It is the lowest portion of the brain located at the base of the skull. It is roughly triangular in shape and it is continued behind the spinal cord. It is located behind the spinal cord region. Its function is to control the activities of the internal organs. Whatever activities our internal organs are doing, like our lungs, our heart, our stomach, our intestines, those are controlled by the medulla oblongata. For example, the peristaltic movement of the alimentary canal. When we are swallowing something, that food is going to the stomach through our esophagus, isn't it? So, and that procedure is known as peristalsis. So that is also done, that is also maintained by the medulla oblongata. the process of breathing, the heart activities, etc. Injury to the medulla generally results in death because, as I told you, that part is associated with all our involuntary actions. So, if there is a huge damage in that part of our brain, then all the involuntary actions will stop and the person can die. So, these are the various parts of the brain. So, just for a quick revision, cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Cerebrum is associated with memory, intelligence, remembering things, subconscious mind, etc. Cerebellum is associated with balance of our body and coordinated muscular activity, and medulla oblongata is associated with the action of the involuntary muscles in our body. Cerebrum is divided into two halves, cerebral hemispheres, which are connected by the corpus callosum, and the cerebrum also consists of such convolutions or such you can say a worm like appearance, and there is a gray matter outside which consists of the body of the nerve cell, and the inside part, which is called white matter, it consists of the axons. Cerebellum does not have any such convolutions, and medulla oblongata is roughly triangular in shape and it is located at the base of the skull. This is another important question: location of the medulla oblongata and its function.